Eastern Cape High Court Judge President Selby Mbenenge is facing a misconduct investigation by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, which could lead to his impeachment. This investigation arises out of a sexual harassment complaint laid by him by Judge's Secretary Andiswa Mengo, who works in the Eastern Cape High Court. This is the first time that a tribunal will be probing allegations of this nature in the judiciary. For more, we are joined by our SABC News reporter, Canny Maphanga. Canny, thank you so much for your time. You've been monitoring the story since yesterday, and if I remember correctly, you did say that Ms. Mengo would have been making submissions today. Can you give us an update on what's been happening with this case?
Well, good afternoon to you, Diaba, and to the viewers at home. We are on day 2 of the sexual harassment probe against Judge President Selby Mbenenge of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court. Of course, we are getting to the meat of the electronic communications that form a great part of this case against Mbenenge. Of course, the WhatsApp texts document the alleged sexual harassment that took place between June 2021 to November 2022. Today, we are getting into some of those messages that the evidence leader, state advocate rather, Selby is highlighting to the tribunal to kind of comb through what could be the possible elements that the tribunal must consider when determining this issue of the alleged sexual harassment that the complainant alleges. So essentially, we're looking at those messages, and it's quite clear in the line of questioning that she's quite trying to highlight this issue of sexual harassment. Now, sexual harassment is a complex issue because it can be quite overt and definitive in the form of explicit conduct. Maybe it's catcalling, for an example, or it can be quite nuanced in that it's subtle in the form of subtle remarks or subtle actions or subtle texts, images, and that is the kind of harassment rather that you'll find in settings such as professional settings, and it makes it quite difficult for a victim of that kind of violence to articulate it when explaining the kind of experience that they've gone through. So we've seen the state advocate comb through those messages, try to get an understanding as to why the respondent, or rather the complainant, kept responding to the messages. So essentially, she's trying to close the loopholes that the counsel of Mbenenge might possibly capitalize on during cross-examination. So she's trying to get an understanding as to why the victim would have responded to those texts, the kind of responses she would have given, and then it highlights issues such as the power dynamics that would have existed between the pair. Remember, this is not only a senior judge in the judiciary, but possibly the most senior in the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court, and she at the time would have been a very junior judge's secretary that is seeing an interest coming from the judge president towards her. Now, she informs the tribunal, gives evidence that a large part of these responses she felt compelled to make because, one, she's a single mother and she didn't want to lose her job. Two, this is a man of great stature and enjoys a lot of respect in the legal profession and the judiciary. And then, of course, he's the head of the division which she works in. So she felt there was no room to completely lash out and stop that communication between her and the judge president, but argues that she was trying to give a measured response to the judge president in response to the alleged sexual harassment that she contends happened. But of course, there is an element in those WhatsApp messages that is still, I think, confusing to many members of the tribunal, in that when the judge president requested images or was persistent and unrelenting in seeking those images from Andiswa Mengo, she then responded saying, quote unquote, earn it. I don't think anyone in this room has quite gotten a clear, definitive answer as to why that was the response to those specific messages. But we know that when cross-examination does come, often in cases like this, the burden of answering those difficult questions then shifts from the alleged perpetrator to the victim of that particular violence. And then the questions then become, well, why did you respond? Why did you entertain it? Why didn't you stop it immediately? And I think what the evidence leader, that is State Advocate Selby is trying to do in this line of questioning that we've seen throughout this morning is to close those loopholes so that one can understand the nuances of sexual harassment and how it takes place. Now, we expect for Andiswa Mengo to continue to be on the stand for quite a number of days because we are dealing with quite a lengthy period of WhatsApp messages, and it is in that bulk where you see the core elements of alleged sexual harassment that the complainant contends happened. So, of course, they're on the lunch break right now, but at 13:45, we continue with Andiswa Mengo back on the stand to explain and comb through those WhatsApp messages between her and Judge President Selby Mbenenge. Over to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Canny Maphanga, for breaking that down for us.